nationally, even 10% in double digits in some states. I mean, this is very encouraging for this stage in our campaign.
How much money have you raised so far?
I think it's probably in the neighborhood of about $500,000.
And what about your staff? How many staffers do you have? Do you have headquarters?
We have a headquarters just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. We're very much right now in the process of getting it all outfitted, all of the paraphernalia that one needs, computers, desks, filing cabinets, telephones, and so forth. All of those should be up and running by the end of the week, within just a few days. We have a campaign manager, we have a deputy campaign manager, we have PR folks, we have a dynamite technology team. This is one of the areas where we took advantage of the folks that did so well for Ron Paul. We have additional positions that we'll be bringing on board as the campaign unfolds. But we're already, I think, well staffed in terms of the key positions. I'm very, very pleased with the folks we have on board, and our campaign headquarters will be just in the right place and ready at the right time. Have you, or would you and your VP donate some of your own personal funds to your campaign? I don't have funds. I'm a working stiff, and the money that I eke out goes to the running of my office, my consulting firm, and my law practice in Atlanta to pay my bills. I don't have personal wealth to put into a campaign. We rely on the message out there and the willingness of the American people, the electorate, liberty-loving Americans, to support us, which they've been doing, and we think will continue to do. What about your running mate? Wayne Root is a small businessman from Las Vegas, very energetic. I've got to know him because he was actually an adversary, an opponent of mine in the lead up to the Libertarian nomination. He was one of the many candidates that was vying for the presidential nomination. So I got to see him, know him very well, was very, very impressed with him, have become even more impressed with him as I've worked with him now for the last several weeks as my running mate. And will he contribute any of his personal funds? I leave that as an answer for him. I would never deign to comment on anybody's personal finances. All right. Well, let's go back to early on in your career. You worked at the CIA as an intelligence analyst from 1971 to 1978. What exactly did you do there? Specifically, what were your responsibilities? Well, without, of course, going into classified material, the work that I did for the CIA, which I thoroughly enjoyed and consider it to have been a great honor to have worked in that institution, fell into basically two categories. The first half of my career, which was about 8 years, was spent doing analysis, current intelligence analysis for the National Security Council and other institutions under the President. The second half of my work there was heading up a legislation staff to work the Hill and follow legislative matters that were going on in the House and the Senate, working with components of the agency, the CIA, to make sure that CIA's special needs and legal authorities were protected or weren't harmed by what was going on the Hill. After September 11th, you voted for the Patriot Act. You have since changed your mind and you oppose it, and you opposed the renewal of it. As a former intelligence analyst, though, how do you create an intelligence apparatus that both protects our national security and our civil liberties? It's actually very easy, and we did it very well for a number of years, but you always have to be vigilant against executive branch power, particularly with regard to intelligence, since it is such a unique area. And it's a very fine line between providing robust authority overseas to gather foreign intelligence without the constraints of the Fourth Amendment and other law enforcement restrictions that we have domestically in the country, but also to make sure that you do not allow those special and robust authorities to be used domestically. And that's a fine line that's been blurred sometimes, and it's being blurred these days, for example, with regard to the wiretapping, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. So you need a Department of Justice and an Attorney General, unlike some that we've had in recent years, that understand the very important difference between those two things, foreign intelligence and domestic constitutional liberties. You need a president that understands that, which I do not think we have now. You need a Congress and an electorate that understands these things. Because if we start allowing the special powers that we grant the CIA, for example, in foreign intelligence, very necessarily so, to bleed over into domestic operations. Pretty soon we've undermined the most precious of our rights in the Bill of Rights, I think, which is the Fourth Amendment guarantee against the government intruding into your privacy to gather evidence against you.
Timothy Weiner wrote in his book, Legacy of Ashes, The History of the CIA, he noted this: under President Nixon, secret government surveillance reached a peak in the spring of 1971. The CIA, the NSA, and the FBI were spying on American citizens. You worked there at that time. Would the Bob Barr of 1971 agree with Bob Barr today, who opposes the Patriot Act and opposes this new surveillance bill?
Absolutely. Of course, at the time, I was a very, very low-level junior analyst, not involved with any policy matter, certainly. But this problem really was not, even though it did reach a very, very serious climax with President Nixon in abusing not just the CIA, but the Department of Justice as well, and we're seeing, this history repeat itself with the current administration. It really didn't start then. It's been a problem throughout, particularly modern history, with the technology that we have now, which of course we didn't have many, many years ago. But we saw these same sorts of abuses begin and take hold during the Johnson administration, even during the Kennedy administration, even during the FDR administration. And Congress over the years has done, I have to say, under Republicans or Democrats, a very, very inadequate, absolutely dismal record of policing the executive branch and conducting oversight to guard against these sorts of abuses.
You've been critical of Republicans, critical of the Bush administration. If not